welcome all of you, attendees, speakers, and interpreters to this first webinar convened by the Aquaculture Advisory Council. I also thank our Secretariat for their work on preparing and setting up this webinar. Today we offer translation into English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish, and you can select your preferred language by clicking on the interpretation globe icon at the lower left on your screen. We have also provided for technical backup, and you can write in the chat using the chat icon if you encounter any technical problems. I will kindly ask you to mute your microphone and only open it when I give you the floor. I also kindly ask you to name yourself and your organization. You can do that by clicking participants on the toolbar, move your mouse over the name, click the ellipsis icon, click rename, then you can enter your name in the pop-up box and click change. And in order to ensure the best quality for the recording and for our interpreters, I do encourage you to use a headset with a microphone when you have the floor, if that's possible. And please only use the chat for technical matters or, let's say, informal exchanges, as I will give the floor during the Q&A sessions. This webinar will be recorded, and it will also be published at the AAC website. So please feel free to turn off your camera if you feel that's more appropriate. As for today's agenda, it includes 10 items. And following my introduction, we will have a short interactive session. And then Birgit van Tongeren from the European Commission will set the scene for the document on good husbandry practices for aquaculture, after which representatives from the Aquaculture Assistance Mechanism will present the fact sheets for rainbow trout, sea bass, sea bream, and mussels. And these presentations will be followed by Q&A sessions. And I will close this webinar no later than 3:30. My name is Brian Thompson. I come from the Danish Aquaculture Producer Organization, and I have the esteemed honor of chairing the Aquaculture Advisory Council. The Aquaculture Advisory Council is a stakeholder-led organization, and we provide the European Commission and the EU member states with recommendations on aquaculture matters. The AAC is composed of representatives from the aquaculture industry and other interest groups, including NGOs, and currently we count 51 member organizations across 14 EU countries. One of our key tasks is to contribute to the implementation of the Commission strategic guidelines for aquaculture. The strategic guidelines include several specific actions to be taken by the Commission, the member states, and also by the AAC. And in this context, we are tasked with supporting and disseminating the document on good husbandry practices. Now, this is our first webinar aimed to reach aquaculture stakeholders across all EU countries. And we have decided to organize 2 to 3 webinars per year on topics to be decided by our executive committee. For this specific webinar, we have 5 objectives. Number 1 is to present the EU guidance document on good husbandry practices. The second is to highlight key elements relevant notably for aquaculture producers. Today we will explain the fact sheets on rainbow trout, on sea bass, sea bream, and mussels. And we hope that the webinar will encourage multi-stakeholder exchange between authorities, NGOs, researchers, and industry, aiming at supporting the sustainable aquaculture development across the EU. Now, following this, it's time for a short interactive session. The objective being to learn just a bit more about who is in the building attending this webinar. The survey includes 5 very short questions, and you will have around 30 to 40 seconds to answer each question. And on this, I think I can give the floor to the Secretariat to introduce us to the questions, please.
Thank you, Brian. Welcome, everyone. We are now going to start with the first question that I'm going to launch right now. So now it appears in your screen. So first question, we want to know the country of residence. So please, you have still 20 seconds more to vote, and this will give us a good idea about the countries where you are attending today. And so please select your country, click on it, and in less than 5 seconds, I will close the poll and share the results. Okay, now I will thank you so much for your participation. I will now end the poll and share the results. So you can all see that today we have participants from Austria, 7 from Belgium, Croatia as well, Denmark, we have 6 from Denmark, welcome, from France, 5, Germany 8, Greece 7, participants from Italy, Latvia, 5 from the Netherlands, 1 from Poland, 2 from Portugal, as well as Romania, 15 from Spain, bienvenidos, and 3 from Sweden. So thank you so much for that. That's the first round. So stop sharing and I will launch the second question. So now it appears in front of your screen. And the question is, what best describes your role? Are you a fish farmer, shellfish farmer, farmer association representative, NGO representative, member state representative, or from any other category? So now you can keep on voting, please. And 5 more seconds, and we will be closing the poll. Okay, thank you so much. I will now end the poll and share the results. So we have among around 10 fish farmers today, 1 shellfish farmer, Farmers Association representatives, 9, NGO representatives, 17, member state representative, 9, and also other 31. Okay, so that's the second question. And now we go to the third question. Launch. Okay, can you see? Oh, sorry. No, this is oh, sorry. My mistake. I will put the third. Now I'm going to launch it. 1 second. And okay, I'm just trying to. Okay, so sorry. This one? Ah, okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, now it is. Really sorry for this little technical issue, but now we are back on. So please, now question number 3, what species are you most interested in? Number 1, rainbow trout, sea bass, sea bream, mussels, and others as an option. And now we're going to leave you 10 more seconds to keep voting. Okay, and now I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Okay, now you can see, so the main interest today is on rainbow trout with 42, then on mussels, 15, and then sea bass and sea bream. And you also have interested for other species, which is interesting. Thank you. Now we go to the 4th question. There are 5 questions in total. So we are almost at the end. Number 4. Yes. Now, regarding the European Commission strategic guidelines, how familiar are you with the European Commission strategic guidelines for more sustainable and competitive EU aquaculture for 2130? Yes, and are you very familiar, somewhat familiar, not familiar? So we are still waiting 5 more seconds to allow you time to vote. And okay, now I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So you can see here it's more or less 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So thank you so much for participating in these questions. I'm going to stop sharing. And now, final question. Okay, now, yes, it is launched. So yeah, you have it in front of your screen. Now the question is on good husbandry practices. So how familiar are you with these documents on the good husbandry practices for aquaculture? So very familiar, somewhat familiar, not familiar. Please choose the option that is suitable to you. And in 5 seconds, I will be ending the poll. Okay, thank you so much for participating. I am ending the poll and sharing the results. So we have the big majority that is somewhat familiar. So very good. Good introduction. You will we will dive in further today. 11 are very familiar already, and 20 are not familiar. So I'm going to stop sharing. And yes, so thank you so much for having participated in this survey. That is very useful for us. Now I give you back the floor, Brian.
Thank you, Cynthia, for taking us through this short survey. Now at least we have some idea on who's in the building and how familiar you are with the topics we have at hand. I think it shows that EU aquaculture is indeed a very diverse sector. So thank you for that. And then we can proceed to the first, say, substantive issue on today's agenda. And I'm very pleased to introduce Birgit van Tongelen from the European Commission. Birgit is a veterinarian, and she joined the European Commission in 2000. Birgit has worked in several Commission services, and in 2018, she joined the DG Marel's aquaculture team, working on files particularly related to animal health, animal welfare, research and innovation, and not to forget organic aquaculture. And on this, I'm pleased to give you the floor, Birgit.
Thank you very much, Brian. Good afternoon, everybody. As said by Brian, I will explain today very briefly the context, the objectives and the key elements of the document on good husbandry practices for aquaculture that will be presented in detail by the experts from the assistance mechanism later on. Next slide, please. So let me start with the context. In May 2021, the Commission adopted the strategic guidelines for a more sustainable and competitive EU aquaculture for the period 2021 to 2030. And these guidelines, in fact, describe the vision and the roadmap for further development of the aquaculture sector in the EU. So the aim was to boost the aquaculture sector in the EU. The guidelines identify key areas for further work, so the priorities that are needed, for example, animal health and animal welfare that we will discuss today are identified as a priority in these strategic guidelines. The guidelines also address challenges that should be addressed, for example, that there is a lack of good husbandry practices on aquaculture that is tailored to specific aquaculture species. That is one of the challenges mentioned in the guidelines. And the guidelines also identify actions, for example, that we should map good husbandry practices for aquaculture. And this specific action resulted in the document on good husbandry practices for aquaculture that will be presented today. The strategic guidelines, still on the previous slide, I just wanted to say that in the context of the strategic guidelines, an aquaculture assistance mechanism has been set up to assist in the implementation of the strategic guidelines. So in fact, it is a contractor that develops technical documents, like for instance, this good husbandry practice document, but also communication material like infographics, videos, and the assistance mechanism also created a website. Thank you. Next slide. So the objective of the Good Husbandry Practice document is to identify and to promote the best good husbandry practices in aquaculture to improve animal health and welfare of different aquaculture species. It is intended for aquaculture producers, and therefore it is designed to be very practical and user-friendly. There are several topics that are addressed in the document, and you will hear later by the experts who will explain the fact sheets which topics there are, like feeding, predator control, minimizing risk of escapees. So a whole range of topics are addressed by the Good Husbandry Practice document. And the good husbandry practices are selected from the 27 member states, but also from Iceland, Norway, Turkey, and the UK. And they cover all stages of the life cycle, so the first stages, but also on-growing and harvest stage. And they cover also different production types, like RAS, net pens, and ponds. So the Good Husbandry Practice document contains a number of fact sheets. There is one general fact sheet that describes good husbandry practices that are relevant for all species. And then there are 8 species-specific fact sheets. There is one on rainbow trout, sea bass, sea bream, and mussels that will be presented today. And in addition, there are fact sheets on common carp, Atlantic salmon, and the cleaner fish, ballan wrasse and lumpfish. Next slide, please. For the moment, we are in the process of updating the document. So this means that the experts are developing 3 new species-specific fact sheets. One on sole, one on turbot, and one on meager. And at the same time, the general fact sheet will be revised to make sure that it is also relevant for these new 3 species. The updated document is now being finalized. It will then be published on the EU Aquaculture website, and the Commission and the assistance mechanism will also communicate about this update when it is ready. So on the Aquaculture website, but also via social media, etc. Where can you find this document? You can find it on the Aquaculture website. When you look at the main horizontal menu bar, you can find the tab Key Documents. And when you click on this tab Key Documents, you will find the document at the end of the bottom, at the bottom right. And when you click on there, you can download the document. So thank you very much. That is all what I wanted to say. I will now give the floor to the aquaculture assistance mechanism experts who really developed the documents, and they will present the species-specific fact sheets. Thank you.
Thank you, Birgit, for setting the scene for the upcoming interventions on the specific fact sheets. Before we go to that, I noted the comments in the chat on the survey. It appears some countries were missing and some species options were also missing. As I said in my introduction, this is our first webinar, so we are very pleased to have your comments, and we will certainly consider them in following webinars. So thank you for being active. Now we will turn to the fact sheet on rainbow trout. And Pablo Sandri will introduce us to the fact sheet. Pablo is the Aquaculture Assistance Mechanism Principal Technical Advisor and also a manager at NTT Data, leading new technology projects in aquaculture, including a blockchain-based traceability system. Pablo is indeed a very experienced professional in both aquaculture and fisheries, complemented by a master's in business administration, and his expertise includes the design and implementation of aquaculture facilities and projects. Pablo has worked on fisheries and aquaculture projects across the globe, basically, including Peru, West Africa, Latin America, Algeria, also the Gaza Strip, and now also the EU. So I'm very pleased to welcome Pablo for this webinar, and I will give you the floor, Pablo, and following that, I will open the floor for questions. Please, Pablo. I think you need to unmute, Pablo.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you to the Aquaculture Advisory Committee, Brian, and your staff for this opportunity, and to my colleague Elena Mente also to stay with me today in the presentation of our document. We start to talk about fact sheet on the rainbow trout, and later on mussels. No, so okay. Very briefly, we talk about the European Union aquaculture vision that Birgit also introduced. No, please, no, not yet. Okay. As you know, yes, exactly. We start talking about this vision. Later on, we talk about the rainbow trout. I would like to say some information about what methodology we use, and we introduce an example of a husbandry practice. Let me say this explanation about husbandry practice. No, what it is our husbandry practice that are included in the document. No, the selected good husbandry practice aim to help implementing in a practical way key legal obligation for operator, and sometimes go beyond the key legal obligation on animal health and welfare requirements. So it's important to have this definition, because most of the practice are obligations, legal obligation, but other ones are beyond this legal obligation. Please, next one. Birgit already introduced this this document came directly from the strategic guidelines, so it's one of the implementation of practical implementation of the European guidelines. The goal of this guideline is to make European Union aquaculture resilient and globally recognized reference to sustainability. So this is one part of this good husbandry practice. To achieve this guideline propose development guidance and good practices across various aquaculture activities. So this is the point. And the presentation introduced only the rainbow trout fact sheet from one of the key documents developed to support this vision. Let me say that now we are preparing other news practices, as Birgit mentioned, in flatfish and in migre. And also we work in a code for welfare. So mainly focusing on welfare. So we are going only to talk about the document that's already published, but I would like to inform you that the other document that we are in process to prepare. No? Okay, please, next one. Good husbandry practice rainbow trout farming involves a variety of practice to ensure the health and welfare of the fish. So this is our scope. This practice can be divided into mandatory requirements, often set by regulation, and we try to cover different topics. This is the topics that we cover: feeding, handling, following, predator control, water quality, stocking densities, disinfection and cleaning, environmental enrichment, selective breeding, and functional feed. And all of these addresses with husbandry practice. Other ones like mortality removal, minimizing risk of escape, and vaccination and treatments, we didn't address. And we try to include all of the mandatory requirements that should be related to these topics. Okay, please, next one. This is the methodology that I mentioned that I would like to introduce. Basically, we start with desk research, searching what good husbandry practice are currently implemented by the sector. This practice related to innovative practice that are still under research, mainly coming from the scientific literature. So some of them, very important group of them, came from the scientific literature. And we try to look for examples from Finland, France, Ireland, Germany, Norway, Poland, and the UK. Maybe there are other ones, sure. But this one that we could find. Consultation was about the document to surveys to the member states, and we provide this document to the member states in the technical seminars. We use the recommendation of your committee, of the Aquaculture Advisory Committee, on a code of good practice on fish welfare among aquaculture producers from 2024. We arranged a workshop in 2023, the technical seminar, as I mentioned, with member states, and we had a cluster meeting with European Union Fund project. And afterwards, we had feedback from DG Santé, academy, industry, and NGOs. Also, let me say that this document is a live document. So we try to present this document saying that we are very happy to have feedback from all of you in the meeting or after the meeting in order to complement this document with relevant and important good husbandry practices. So I mentioned this because I would like to emphasize the consultative process and important to, at the end of the next publication, to improve the document with more relevant or more important practices. Thank you. Again, the next one. Start with feeding. We use the main European Union regulation is this one, 848, that outline the main provision of feeding organic certified product. Some good husbandry practice that we selected here is the small larval fish and free needs frequent high protein meals with the frequency and protein content decreasing as they grow. Farmers should use feeds designed for the specific life stage of the fish, and feeding should not begin until at least 90% of the alevin have lost their yolk sacs. Next one. For handling, we selected 3 ones. In the document you have more, no? But this is the one that I selected, to show you, like, maybe the most important from my point of view. Pumps and pipes used for moving fish must not have sharp protrusion, kinks or bends that could injure or stress the fish. Siphoning of alevins is not permitted, and alevin that weight less than 0.5 grams should not be moved using nets. The regulatory requirement that we selected is the 848 that outline the main provision for feeding organic certified products. And here I mentioned that we put examples that example of implementation of this good husbandry practice in United Kingdom and Poland. Please, next one. For following, this is quite difficult to find good husbandry practice in the practical way or from the producers, and we use here the desk research, the scientific bibliography. Following of 3 months may be enough to reduce the exposure of secretexia from one production cycle to the next one. So in this case, as I mentioned, we use the scientific literature. Next one, please. For predator control, we find 2 mandatory requirements: the Habitat Directive and the Directive 147 on the conservation of the wild birds, the Bird Directive, that protect cormorant, but that allows member states with some flexibility to make exception to the strict protection. And in this case, we selected two husbandry practice. Like good producer must use all reasonable non-lethal method to protect their fish from wild animals. And the other one is the primary method of protection should be physical exclusion. This is important one. Predator nets should be considered for deployment and high-risk sites and during high-risk period. Any site that has an elevated risk of attack or has suffered an attack in the past should have a working acoustic deterrent device in place there in case that their use is allowed. No, not everywhere is allowed. Okay. Next one, please. In the case of water quality, we have in the mandatory requirements 464 that include mandatory water quality requirements for organic certified product. And for the practices, the ideal water temperature for growth of the rainbow trout is between 16 and 18 degrees. Oxygen saturation level should be at least 90% for eggs and alevins and at least 70% for fry and growers. And extreme pH level below 5 or above 9 should be avoided. Next one, please. For stock densities, we have again the 464 for organic certified product. That set in this case for organic certified product is set that is the stocking density should be 25 kilograms per cubic meters in fresh water and 10 kilograms per cubic meter in seawater. The good husbandry practice that I would like to show you is the first one is the stock density in net pens in freshwater and seawater lunch shouldn't go above 10 kilograms per cubic meters, and for fish under 100 grams, and 15 kilograms per cubic meter for ungrowens being more than 100 grams. For freshwater unit, density shouldn't exceed 50 kilograms per cubic meter and any time of 35 kilograms per cubic meter during the summer. And low stocking density, less than 10 kilograms per cubic meter, can also negatively affect welfare through increased social hierarchy. Next one, disinfection and cleaning. All equipment should be cleaned and disinfected at the end of each day of harvesting. Organic material should be removed with a detergent before disinfection, and the disinfectant must be in contact with all surface for the period recommended by the manufacturer. In this case, we don't have any mandatory regulation. Document on environmental enrichment, that is another topic. Using gentle water currents can lead to calmer fish and improve welfare. Using bubble diffusion as a feeding signal can reduce aggression and improve fish fish well-being by stimulating their cognitive abilities. Rainbow trout adapt to black background, have higher cortisol levels and suppressed immune system when compared to fish on white background. Beige colored tanks have been correlated with superior growth in rainbow trout. Compared to individuals fed continuously with an automatic feeder, rainbow trout with free access to self-feeder were more homogeneous in white and showed less mortality for the same final specific growth rate and feed efficiency. In all of these good husbandry practice, we have in the document, you can find very easily the reference where we get information there, and the reference also where we get the examples, no? And as mentioned, we try to put example at least in all of the topics, no? If we could find it. Okay. Next one, please. And selective breeding, this is very new topic. Selective breeding can improve fish welfare by developing rainbow trout lines with a low cortisol response to stress. The culture of genetically enhanced trout is acceptable if it is the result of selective breeding, not genetic modification, and good management practice in breeding program include increasing genetic diversity, using strict biosecurity protocols, and monitoring for temperature-related disease. Please, next one. And then I think that is the last one. Immunostimulant for the functional feed, I mean, for this topic, immunostimulant diet or supplement can be used before a stressful event to boost immunity. An approved diet contains vitamin supplement, and immunostimulant can be used during critical or stressful period. Farmers should use feed formulated specifically for the life stage of the fish. Next one, please. Okay, so here is you can see the QR, where is the same information that Birgit mentioned before, where you can get this document, also all of the document of the mechanism. And in the document, you can find the rest of the good husbandry practices and all of the bibliography that we use it. Let me say that I try to introduce the document. I hope that all of them that I mentioned, maybe you can find more information in the document. So, but I hope that this example can show you the importance of the document that we can produce in a way that is friendly to use for the producer and has been done in a consultative process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pablo, for providing us with a helicopter view on the key topics on the fact sheets on rainbow trout. Now I will open the floor for questions. But before doing that, we have some housekeeping rules for this session. Number one is that I will kindly ask you to use the raise hand button. If you have a question, you can find it under the heart button at the toolbar. And when you have the floor, please switch on your camera, introduce yourself. I would also kindly ask you to keep your questions short and speak slowly to help our interpreters. Also, you can use the chat if you are not able to use the raise hand button. And I think, Pablo, if it's okay with you, we will take 3 questions before I will give the floor to you to answer the question. Let me note that we have allotted 15 minutes for this session. Now, if time does not allow us to answer all questions, I will invite you to mail them to the AAC Secretariat, and we shall do our utmost to provide you with an answer. And I will give you the email address at the end of the webinar. Now, and on this, I will kindly ask you to raise your hand. And as a first speaker, we have Elaine. So please, Elaine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as a vet myself, I'm a bit disappointed that we did not talk about vaccination and biosecurity. I believe these topics are becoming more and more important with climate change. I'm also surprised to see that there was no documentation regarding the stamping out, the disease eradication. Let me assure you that everywhere in Europe and not so far from Brussels, we have many fish farmers that could actually tell you a lot on this topic. Thank you. But I'm fully aware, of course, that this is a living document, and we will, of course, gladly contribute to the document. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine, for that comment. Other questions?
I think that is a very important point that you mentioned. Actually, let me say that I get your point, and I would like to add this issue in the next revision. So I will be very pleased if you can provide this information, because actually biosecurity and bathings is one of the important. Maybe we couldn't consider this in the rainbow trout because we couldn't find relevant information focusing rainbow trout. So it means that can be addressed for other biosecurity aspect in other of the species that we considered inside, in the document. So, but anyway, I get your point, and please keep in touch and send to me this information that we can including in the next version. Yeah. Okay.
Thank
It's
you.
very important. Yeah.
Thank you, Pablo. Next to have the floor will be Martin Splix. Please, Martin.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes, I'm from Latvia, and I represent a scientific institute, BIOR. My question is about light conditions for the rainbow trout. I did my master's thesis on rainbow trout, and we had a problem with the light at the beginning, where feeding was severely inhibited by the light in the system. So we did a very fast solution to the problem by putting black trash bags essentially covering some of the tank to lower the light levels. Is there anything related to that in good husbandry practices? Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. And next on the floor will be our Vice Chair, Charlotte. Please, Charlotte.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, I'm Charlotte from Your Group for Animals. Thank you very much for this presentation. I read that the recommendations should be applicable to all systems and production systems. Yeah, I wanted to check how you've evaluated how practically feasible these are, or will you be following up with farmers to see the practical implementation? I'm thinking, for example, of recommendations on environmental enrichment for trout. I know this is challenging for RAS systems, for example, to have like physical objects that can disrupt the flow. Yeah, so also curious to know how this will be followed up on with farmers, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. And I think we can also include the intervention from Paul before I give the floor to Pablo. Please, Paul.
Yes, on Paul Denenkamp from the Dutch Foundation for the Protection of Fish, Vissenbescherming. On selective breeding, you want to select rainbow trout with low levels of cortisol, because cortisol has a function in an animal. And is this not a way to breed unnatural calm trouts? And that's not a way, considering from animal welfare, what I think is preferable. And sorry, my camera doesn't work.
It's okay, Paul. I will give the floor to Pablo to answer the three questions. Please, Pablo.
I'll be answering in Spanish because these are very technical questions. So as regards your first question regarding light exposure, we do have a lot of information regarding different systems for other species, but not specifically for the trout. So that's why we thought it was important to take it into consideration, but we don't have all the details at the moment. We believe this is related to welfare. So if you have a specific information that you can share with me, I will be very happy to receive it. As regards environmental enrichment, we've taken into account all the examples that we have received from the different aquaculture systems that we have in practice in Europe. So yes, we've taken into consideration all the different contexts. I am not an expert in cortisol to answer the third and final question. We have received some information which has given us, has brought us to this conclusion. So maybe the literature that we have consulted is not the adequate one, I'm not sure, but all the literature we have consulted so far has shown that path that we need to reduce cortisol levels. And finally, yes, we have taken into account all the different practices and realities when it comes to welfare, but we didn't have specific information or reports on light.
Thank you, Pablo. We have two more questions. I have a question from Phil Brook, Compassion in World Farming. It's more on the procedural step if there's a deadline for suggesting improvements to the document before the update in January. That's one question. And for the second question, we will have to go to Sweden. So please, Ola, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Pablo, for this. I'm Ola from Sweden, Swedish producer organization, and we are farming, among other things, rainbow trout. I was thinking about you gave some keys of water quality parameters like the temperature 16 to 18 degrees for optimum welfare. In Sweden, we normally don't have this temperature. It's only part of the year we have this. Mainly there is lower temperature. Would you say that it would impact the rainbow trout farming negative to have a lower temperature than 16 degrees? Or can it be that you can follow the season also? Thank you.
Thank you, Ola. I'll give the floor to Pablo, please.
Yes, when it comes to breeding, we have realized that if you're below 16 degrees, you can still breed fish, but it's not ideal. Ideally, you should be between 16 and 18 degrees. This is also related to feeding because they will be properly fed, and also to reproduction. Of course, you already have your own experience and you know how to manage fish which are below 16 degrees, but for us, the ideal range would be between 16 and 18 degrees.
Thank you, Pablo. Any comments to the question from Paul on the option to provide comments to the document before the update in January?
Well, I do not have a deadline for you, unfortunately, but these are documents that we are working on. They're being improved on a regular basis. So, you know, from now until the end of the year, you have comments, you can submit them to us, but we need some time to make sure to go through them and include them in the next version. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo, for clarifying this. Now will be the final time if you have any further questions to Pablo on rainbow trout. That does not appear to be the case. So I thank you, Pablo, and we will see you again when when we have to deal with mussels. So for now, we will continue with the fact sheet on sea bass and sea bream, and I'm delighted to introduce you to Professor Elena Menta. She has more than 20 years of experience with research in aquatic animal nutrition and physiology, and she has coordinated and participated in many research-funded projects in the field of sustainable aquaculture. Ongoing research is related to nutrigenomic and fish nutrition in aquaculture, aquaponics, and organic aquaculture. Elena has also authored / co-authored, edited more than 6 books, more than 120 peer-reviewed papers, and participated in more than 160 international and national conferences. She was also a member of the subgroup, the ECTOP, providing technical advice on organic aquaculture to the European Commission. So please, Professor Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you very much for the invitation. I also would like to thank Alexia Levra, who wrote the good practices and the document with the help of Pablo and Brigitte, and it was a very nice and fruitful collaboration. Next slide, please. I would like, before I start, to mention the general idea behind the good husbandry practices for aquaculture. We aim for good living conditions for the aquatic animals, and this is what we look for and what we try to accomplish. To do that, we really need to respect some environmental parameters since we are in the aquatic environment, and these are related basically with temperature, oxygen, salinity, pH, turbidity, and overall the water quality where the aquatic animals live. And then we have husbandry parameters like nutrition, the stocking density, rearing conditions, hygiene, and disease prevention that we have to look after. Overall, the good living conditions for all the aquatic animals, they are also divided between the individual animal and the animal inside the group where it is reared. So we have the social behavior of fish, which is changing when it is inside the cage or a tank in a group, and is different when it is as an individual in different areas of his biological needs. For sea bream and sea bass, basically, we had a very good reference that helped us a lot to write the good husbandry practices from a Mediterranean fish welfare guide that was produced from the Hellenic Aquaculture Producers Organization, and it was also approved here in Greece by the Ministry of Rural Development and Food. And colleagues in different universities that they work with animal welfare and health contributed to this guide. Next slide, please. This presentation will address these good practices for the two species, the European sea bass and the gillhead sea bream. I will just call them sea bass and sea bream just for a shorter acronym, let's say. And we will try to summarize, let's say, some practices that the farmers are already know, but it's nice to have them in a kind of guidelines, and they can see them in topics if it is needed to go through, or they can improve, as we said before, and decide to update some topics according to the requirements. So we have the topics as addressed for Trout 2 in general topics, and they are in blue in this slide. And this is the feeding, handling, mortality removal, following predator control, water quality, stocking densities, disinfection and cleaning, vaccination and treatments. And then we have some specific topics like environmental enrichment, selective breeding, and functional feed that we try to all of them to address the good husbandry practices. Of course, there are some mandatory requirements that they are for the predator control and stock intensity for both the sea bass and sea bream species. Next slide, please. We follow the same methodology as for the other species, so it was a desk study. We have done our literature review, mainly from scientific literature. We had some implementation, some questions, some discussions with the sector, examples from the places where we farm the sea bream and sea bass, consultations with service technical seminars, obviously the AAC, and workshops that was held in Brussels, and workshops where we had feedback from the experts. Next slide, please. I'm trying to divide the good husbandry practices documents for sea bream and sea bass according to the production cycle of these two species. So we have the broodstock rearing stage or phase for the two species, where we have differences when we spawn, for the spawning in relation to the sex of the species. For sea bream, we have 2-3 years old species, and we have two males and two or three males and one female. For sea bass, we have 3 males and 1 female. So we have different handling procedures for rearing the species for the broodstock. And then we continue with the eggs, different again incubation methods for the eggs, and how many eggs we have. And we continue for the larva rearing, depending on the species, different days that the developmental stages of the larvae continue. And in this stage we have the live feed that we need to use, which is rotifer and artemia. We continue afterwards in incorporating the dry feed pellets, and we are in the phase of the juvenile stage. So we are in the juvenile waning rearing up to the 2 to 5 grams, where we have the pre-growing rearing phase inside the RAS systems. And then from 5 gram or 10 to 25, we start moving the fish or transferring them in sea cages or ponds, and we continue up to the commercial size, which is 400 grams for sea bream and sea bass, in roughly 2 months difference in the period where we have the production cycle. Next slide, please. So following the production cycle of the species, we try to divide the good husbandry practices in these different stages. So for feeding, we have the broodstock rearing stage, the larva rearing, the juvenile, the on-growing stage. And in all these stages, we try to summarize some feeding regimes that is needed, and they are all aim to provide to the animal the nutrients according to the age of development and the growth time that they are reared, and meet their nutritional requirements. So overall, we have the dry feed for the broodstock that they have to provide all essential nutrients to ensure effective gametogenesis and excellent quality eggs, and then larvae further on. And then we have a feed that needs to provide to the animal the nutrients, but also take into consideration to reduce waste and obviously to prevent deterioration of the water quality of the tanks. Live feed is something that is different in sea bream and sea bass, since it is needed in their early stages of their development. So we have larval feeds enriched with artemia, and initially we have the rotifers. We add sometimes phytoplankton, chlorella. All of this is just to improve the larval survival and growth, and obviously we enrich them with polysaturated fatty acids, phospholipids, and amino acids, again to meet the nutritional requirements of the larvae. In the juvenile and waning phase, we have the feeds that they have to be spread in regular intervals, and it can be either in automatic feeders, manual feeding, or self feeders, depending on the actual size of the farm. And all this needs to be done in close observation with the behavior of the fish, because feed has to be accessible to all the animals, and obviously to avoid intraspecific aggression. In the grown offshore, as we call it, culture, again, we really need to point out the appropriate amount of feed ratio, regular feeding at specific time. This reduces the risk of cannibalism. Depending on the development stage, as they grow, we know how much is the digestion rate and feeding behavior, so we know how much is the optimal feeding. Again, depends on the temperature of the environment where they grow. So the keywords here is frequency, quantity, and the timetable that the animals need to follow their biological rhythms for optimal feed utilization and feed quantity. Next slide, please. In relation to handling, again, if we divide it into the different phases of the production cycle, we point out again that we have to have some trained personnel, especially for the broodstock rearing, in relation to tagging, sexing, or providing handling the animal, and be more manipulating in a good way the animal. And especially attention have to be taken into the photo period and temperature, where we can induce the reproduction and always have the best results. It is advisable to have the monitor by vegetarian and follow anesthesia for sex ratio. In larva rearing, we always point out on repeating sampling for estimation of the growth rate and the quality of the larvae, and special handling when we transfer to the waning installation. Back to the cages or the ponds for the offshore culture, we really need to take care of the fasting period. It doesn't have to be longer than 48 hours, because this is enough to empty the gut, and in warmer periods, if it is longer, we might have some problems, especially for sea bream. Short-term fasting, which is 7 days, may lead to weight loss, so we shouldn't do that. Keep fish moist out of the water, handle them with wet hands, sorting it between 25 to 40 grams and around 100 grams. But again, each farmer knows more how is the best way to deal with all this sorting and fishing behavior of the animals in his farm. Next slide, please. Mortality removal, obviously we really need to remove immediately the dead larvae daily, and this is not to spread possible diseases or introduction of pathogens, and obviously not only the dead one, but the ones that they are dying, and really they need to be out of the tanks or cages. For sea bream, we have the famous winter syndrome, so there's a loss of weight in the winter. So basically they don't eat, so we have to reduce the feed ration in the winter since the temperature is dropping. And obviously, this is something that we have to increase when in the summer we have the temperature that is going up. Basically, we want to mitigate the effects of thermal metabolic stress. So winter diets are rich in lipids. They are rich in marine-derived ingredients and minerals, and they are reducing the metabolic effects of heat stress and improving immunity. So for sea bream, we have separate diets for the winter and in the summer. Next slide, please. Following is something that it is considered for sea bream and sea bass, and it is needed in the basis of the renewal rate of the water and the carrying capacity of the area, the depth of the installation of the farm, and any other abiotic and biotic characteristics and environmental conditions. As an example, we have in the Greek legal building from 2011 the following that could be implemented as a good husbandry practice. Next slide, please. Predator control, we have a mandatory requirement in the Council Directive 94 of 21st of May 1992, I guess. This is a mistake here. And we have animal and plant species of community interest in need of strict protection. For instance, a common dolphin. And for good husbandry practices in sea cages, predation is always controlled either by having nets on top of the cages or by having especially on growing units that they are preventing predator control. We try to cover with double nets to avoid excess exposure to direct sunlight and predators, and obviously for seals that they could be around in the cages. Next slide, please. Water quality is very important, as we mentioned in the first slide, and we really need to know and avoid temperature when we have the winter syndrome, as I explained before. If it is decreases to 15 to 9 degrees for gillhead sea bream, we have to really stop feeding. And obviously for optimal range of oxygen concentration, pH, always checking, and we really need to have a record and monitor for the good quality for rearing of the animals in all the different stages. Optimal performance for growth and feed consumption in salinity 30 ppm for the on-growing system, while temperature, oxygen, lighting is very important for the juvenile, stale, and larva rearing. And in the broodstock, we can have these environmental conditions that we change for spawning and increasing photoperiod and thermocycles to induce, let's say, spawning period exactly when we want. So we can apply them from March through to September to obtain spawning from October through to May. Next slides, please. Stocking density, we have a mandatory requirement that the maximum should be 15 kilos per cubic meter in sea cages and 4 per cubic meter in earth ponds. Especially for organic aquaculture, we had some scientific results that they show that are below 4 kilograms per cubic meter in the sea cages, the fish didn't grow, basically, and didn't want to eat. So we really need to keep some maximum but also minimum stocking densities. We have the broodstock rearing, and inside the tanks inshore culture in the RAS, it is 10 to 25, and for larval rearing and adequate stocking density shall be maintained when we have observations of the fish behavior, again to avoid intraspecific aggression. Typical stocking density usually is 5 to 20 kilograms per cubic meter for fish weighing 2 to 150 grams. And 10 to 20, as I said before, for larger fish above 150 grams. Inappropriate stocking density needs to be avoided because it can lead to fin injuries and decrease feed intake. Obviously, increase the disease acceptability. Next slide, please. Disinfection and cleaning, this is again the same with the mechanical and antimicrobial filters that we use for biosecurity and stock welfare inside the tanks in the inshore culture, and on the on-ground phases, frequent net changing, weekly cleaning to remove fouling organisms, periodic anti-fouling treatment to avoid net deterioration. And obviously, what is it's all for all the rearing species. We need to have the disinfectant for the period recommended by the manufacturer, and obviously we need to have all equipment clean and disinfecting for the everyday use of handling and harvesting. Next slide, please. Vaccination and treatments, it is only one antiparasitic treatment that is allowed over the most recent production cycle, including the hatchery. And we have less than 3 treatments for antibiotics. And we have some examples that this is already implemented in Croatia, Italy, Germany, Greece, Turkey, Spain, Albania. In bath treatments are regularly used to control gill and skin ectoparasites. Treatments can be performed in the rearing tank of fish, can be collected and treated in a separate tank container. Freshwater baths are considered therapeutic baths and are applied mainly at land-based facilities. An example of that is for the specific concentrations that we have for Euplotes or Criprocaryon species for sea bream. And baths in formalin solution is a well-known therapy against ectoparasitic infections. Obviously, we have to have the dose as it is 375 ppm for the ectoparasite in sea bass diplectan, and 25 to 200 ppm against the ectoparasites Paricotyle chrysophili for sea bream. Next slide, please. Environmental enrichment, anything that could make the animal behave, let's say, in a natural environment is something that we really need to have, so we can increase the structural complexity of fish captive environment as much as possible. We have seen that blue is a color in the gravel that was found to lower aggression behavior in sea bream. And when we had juvenile sea breams reared with blue substrate, displayed less aggression and lower basic cortisol levels. A simple enrichment of adding vertical ropes in sea cages could improve fin condition and behavior of sea bream. U-shaped ropes may possibly affect the group behavior of sea bass to stressful conditions. Next slide, please. Selective breeding, selection programs started to be implemented by the farms, especially for conducting artificial fertilization, single pair rather than mass spawning. And overall, selective breeding has been successfully applied to improve the growth rate of the fish and the profitability and sustainability for disease outbreaks. There is a new genomic tool, the MedFish array, which accelerates selective breeding by selecting genes efficient for specific genetic analysis. And gillhead sea bream broodstock selected on growth could have a positive role in the improvement of sperm and egg quality to produce viable progeny. At the moment, we are trying also to continue the research on selective breeding and feed efficiency for these two species that we haven't achieved so far. The next slide, please. And the final topic on functional feed, we have a lot of research and literature has shown that current aqua feeds formulated for farmed sea bream and sea bass, they are designed to meet the complete nutritional requirements, and they provide the nutrients that the fish need in different states on their development according to the environmental conditions that they are reared. and we support the optimal growth performance. For ongoing research, we focus more on diet formulations to enhance feed efficiency and the functionality of these ingredients. We have some examples where microalgae-derived products, they enhanced feed efficiency and modulated the intermediary metabolism in sea bream. We included plant proteins. We know some issues with the nutritional factors that they have. We try to replace the soybean meal at the moment with more local plant proteins that could be also fermented. So we use yeast, we use bacteria that could reduce these and the nutritional factors. And generally, as I said before, we are interested in the feed and functionality of the individual ingredients, with our main aim to replace the fish meal, fish oil in the diet, since we don't have enough quantities of this super food, as I call it, ingredient. Next slide, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elena, for taking us through the fact sheet on sea bass and sea bream. I will now open the floor for questions, and I kindly ask you to follow the same protocol as I explained before, using the raise hand button. While the audience are thinking, I may ask you, Elena, if you may have some additional comments on the use of autogenous vaccines as a best practice.
Yes, at the moment it's something that it is considered in sea bream and sea bass, and there are some centers that they start developing them a lot for the rearing of the species. Also, I forgot to mention that the EU announced a reference center for animal welfare for aquatic animals in Crete, and they have a lot of training courses for farmers and for anyone who wants to really work and learn more about the new things for health and welfare of rearing the sea bream and sea bass and other animals too, aquatic.
Thank you, Elena, and also thank you for referring to the reference center for the welfare of aquatic animals. It's a very important initiative. And then I will give I think also on this occasion, we will take 3 questions before I give the floor to you, Elena, to answer them. And the first to have the floor is Paul Dennekamp. Please, Paul.
Yes, Paul Dennekamp again from the Dutch Foundation for the Protection of Fish. In the part of trout and the part of predator control, was mentioned that only non-lethal methods were allowed. And that is, I didn't see it, but maybe I missed it, in the part of sea bass and sea bream. And I think there also same should happen, that only non-lethal methods are allowed for predator control, non-lethal methods.
Thank you, Paul, for that question. And now I will give the floor to Wow. I may not pronounce it correct, but you know who you are. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for the presentation, Elena. I'm João Chambel from Biosystem Team, a company that works on aquaculture side. And my question is on side of welfare. I see that there is some attention for the lighting, but there is a lack of information about specific information of the effect of lighting. And when we are talking about lighting, we not is just the photo period, is the intensity, the spectrum for the different phase of development. How you think that aquaculture are taking attention for that precision information, because each species is one species, and there is no much attention, I think, to that on side of welfare. So I would like to have your view and how you think that the next years aquaculture will develop those information.
Thank you for the question on lightning, and then I'll give the final question to Ola. Please, Ola.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Elena, for this interesting overview. I had a question about something that I've been struggling with. It's the structural complexity, and you said on one slide, increase the structural complexity, gravels and pebbles and plants of fish captive environment as much as possible. And then this possible, it's like if you have a lot of it, you maybe cannot have any fish there. Or is it like good for the fish, good for the fish farmers? Or how do you define this possible? Thank you.
Thank you, Ola. I will give the floor to you, Elena, to answer the three questions, please.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Well, definitely we need to take into consideration the non-lethal methods for the predator control, and it might be something that we need to add in the document, I think. For the lighting, I'm sure that they take it into consideration, especially in the hatchery, and they are working on this intensity spectrum. It is very important, as Johan just mentioned, and if it is needed, we can also add it in the manual for specific, obviously, rearing sections in sea bream and sea bass. Now, for the structural complexity, it is difficult to marry, as we say, both things at the same time, because we want to keep the water quality nice and easy to clean and handle it. On the other hand, as we said, just if we have the blue tanks in the rush, it will help a bit more. If you have the cages in areas where there is already pebbles, the benthic salts underneath, it is easier, and obviously it is better for the fish. And you have to find the golden rule, definitely, to have both, and in moderation for both of them.
Thank you, Elena. We still have time left if there are additional questions, comments, or reflections. If not, we will not keep you unduly. So I thank you for the questions and the answer, and we will proceed to the next species, next topic, which is the fact sheet on mussels. And I'm pleased to give you the floor again, Pablo.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's good to have a brief between presentation, because I had a chance to think about the question, and this is maybe I create a confusion when the first gentleman, Mr. Ogber, asked me about the vacuums, bathinence and biosecurity. Actually, let me explain that this document had, first of all, a general good husbandry practice chapter, and afterwards we had a specific oriented husbandry practice. It means that when I explained the fact sheet for Trout, I didn't explain, or I didn't consider bathinence and biosecurity, because we couldn't find a specific for trout. So it means that to read the document, please, first of all, read this general good husbandry practice chapter in order to understand which husbandry practice are suitable or are oriented for all of the fish, no for mussels, of course. And afterwards, you have to read the fact sheet for each species. So in this case, because actually I was very concerned about the question of Mr. Ogber, you have a big chapters for bathination and treatment, and chapter for disinfection and cleaning in the general one. So sorry so much, because I create a confusion. Birgit did this introduction before, and I go directly in the fact sheet for trout without mention that in some cases the general ones are even much more important than the specific ones, and so you should read first of all this general chapter. No, so thank you for this time to reflect, and I had opportunity to give more clear answer to the question of Mr. Over, and actually for the other ones also, because when there is a environmental enrichment and so on, all of these general husbandry practice in every topics are considered in the general ones. No, so we can move forward now in the fact sheet on mussels. I didn't do the vision of the aquaculture because it's already done. I spent a little bit the methodology and also the examples, and here my definition. I am not going to repeat about what means good husbandry practice. No, okay. Next slide, please. Let me. Yeah. Okay, it's the same that also this fact sheet at the beginning we try to consider more wide scope that not only mussels, we try to do for other bivalves, and finally we focus in this chance only to mussels. No, so in this presentation introduce only the mussel fact sheet from one of the key document development for the document of husbandry practice. So, okay. Next one, please. Here we change a little bit well, first of all, involve a variety. The husbandry practice involve a variety of practice to ensure the health and welfare of the animal, the mussel, and this practice can be divided into mandatory requirement, regulation, and practices which are recommended for optimal farming. In this case, we change the topics a little bit because there is, of course, a very obvious difference with the finfish. So the topic will be handling, disease prevention, predator control, water quality, stocking densities, and depuration and cleaning. The next one, please. Okay, so the same methodology that we use, this desk research, the good husbandry practice related to innovative practice that are still under research, mainly coming from the scientific literature, and examples that we can get it from UK, France, Spain, Portugal, and Ireland. We did a survey and the consultation through different seminars. Of course, we consider the recommendation of good husbandry practice in shellfish farming. And this workshop that I mentioned before in 2023, the technical seminar and the cluster meeting. And I would like to thank especially to the Comité National de la Aquaculture, the National Committee of France of the Aquaculture that support a lot with information and with reference and documents for this work. No, that is very specific, and actually they help us a lot in the preparation of the fact sheet. No, please, next one. Okay, I'm going to talk first of all in handling, but let me say that we consider here blue mussels and Mediterranean mussels, and maybe I'm going to inform you about good husbandry practice that could be only for one of these species. First of all, we included here for blue mussels, for instance. Hatchery production could provide a dependable annual source of spat. Currently there are not commercial hatcheries in Europe, so it is recommended that companies and laboratories use recognized protocols like those from Aquavite and FAO. So this is very important one. Using wheel spat is cost effective and helps maintain the genetic diversity of mussel population, which is important for long-term sustainability and resilience. No, wheel spat are also less susceptible to disease compared to hatchery-bred mussels, no? And this reality that no commercial hatcheries in Europe, no? On bottom culture, also we try to cover in this fact sheet all of the methods of growing. On bottom culture, a good husbandry practice is that mussel spat can be moved from areas of high abundance to culture plots with lower density to improve growth and culture predation. In case of the method of bushot culture, a spat can settle directly on coconut fiber ropes. Excess juveniles can be transferred in the summer to tubular net to optimize stocking density and prevent them from failing off. And finally, harvesting, in this case is also for blue mussels, can be harvested when they reach a marketable size of about 40 millimeters, which typically takes 12 to 24 months. Next one, please. We cover, first of all, the good husbandry practice, and here you have these mandatory requirements, especially, and here there is a mistake, it's not 24, let me say, is 853 from 2024 for organic certified products. So additional production rules apply and as outlined in regulation 848, and examples we get it from UK and Poland. Next one, please. For disease prevention, we have monitoring, first of all, for good husbandry practice. Integration producer and organization into early warning system improves the monitoring of regulated pathogens. And this network can also monitor for technical parameters like growth and mortality. The early warning system can help mitigate the impact of harmful algal blooms. No? In case of management measures, mussels should not be moved from a diseased area to a pathogen-free one to prevent contamination. And shellfish farmer can also equip land-based operation with purification and storage tank to combat water quality issues. And in this case, the mandatory requirement for mortality removal are in the European legislation 1065 for 29 and regulation 853, no? And finally, the same regulation for 35 product that came from 2018, the number 848. Next one, please. For predator control, first one that is very important is this holistic approach is recommended to reduce predation pressure from the many different types of predator. Visual checks on the stock can help remove natural predators like crab and starfish. And for a small scale cultivation, predation by crabs can be reduced with traps or protected fence. For large scale operation, laying spat at high density is an option. No? Finally, starfish can be removed with dredge or mops, especially before the seeds are related, and the use of persistent chemical toxic is not allowed. And finally, we have the Habitat Directive and the Organic Certified Product Legislation 848 that applies in this case also for predator control. Next one, please. Water quality, that is very important. The mussels farmers told us that are developing a predictive warning system with the help of specialist companies to monitor health risks such as microbiological, viral, and phycotoxin contamination. It's important to establish constant and transparent communication with the stakeholder in the catchment area, and close relationship with research organization and data collection allows professionals to anticipate contamination risk and adapt their practices. We have the legislation 113 from the European Union from 2006, and the rules of organic product that repeat again the 848. Next one. Stock density, we have the mandatory requirement that I mentioned before, and the husbandry practice The production density should always be based on the ecosystem carrying capacity. That is quite important. The bouchot, I think that is French, no? Bouchot culture rearing structure are typically from 50 to 60 meters long. Each pole produces around 30 to 40 kilograms of live mussels. Long line culture, these techniques allow for highly mechanized culture and yields of 18 to 20 tons per hectare per year. Thinnings, periodically thinning mussels allow farmers to control growth rate and ensure a comparable size and harvest time. No? And finally, producers should ensure that local conditions are suitable before increasing density. Some of these cases, some of these good husbandry practice actually came directly from the producers and are personal communication that are based in the experience. Afterward, we're trying to find bibliography and scientific literature. And let me say that it's difficult because sometimes the producer knows much better than the scientific literature established. No? So, but we prefer to gather here all of this information that came directly from the producers. No? Okay, next one. Okay, and this is the regulatory framework. I'm not going to read for the depuration and cleaning, no? And you can find all of this regulation and the links to the regulation also in the document, no? Okay, next one. For depuration and cleaning, the good husbandry practice, you have post-harvest processing. In unpolluted area, dredged mussels can be automatically cleaned and stored on both decks. And in the topics or subtopics of recovering and storage, mussels can be temporarily stored in rewatering tanks to recover from dredging stress and expel sand or grit. Following pooling control, use mechanical methods such as scraping or bruising to remove unwanted organisms. Note that the using of persistent chemical toxins is not permitted. In case of risk prevention, farming operations should have prevention plan in place for proper waste disposal and managing chemical spills. And finally, hatchery hygiene, nurseries and hatcheries, which are highly sensitive to cleanliness, must use water pumping system equipped with centering basins, filter and ultraviolet sterilizers that they also perform regular bacteriological and biological control. Okay, next one. Okay, and thank you very much. And here you have also the QR with all of this information. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Pablo, for sharing with us the main content of the fact sheets on mussels. And like before, I will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You had a final slide?
No, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Let me. Yeah, I have to put in English. Yeah, here because maybe it's better if you can read in the document. But anyway, that we try to cover these two different species, and we found it that there is some difference in case of in each one for the management. No, so I included this slide here, but it's very technical, and if someone are interested, I can provide it. No, in how the operation can be improved in each species. No, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pablo, for the additional comments, and also thank you for clarifying the issues on the vaccinations and biosecurity. I noted the reach out from Elaine on this issue, so I'm sure that the communication will continue after this webinar. So thank you for that. Now it is time to open the Q&A session on mussels, following the same protocol as before. So on this, I will open the questions for comment or questions, and I see that we can invite again Paul Dennekamp. Please, Paul.
Yes, again, me as first one from the Dutch Foundation of the Protection of Fish. general remark, and it's but very important. As AAC, we produced a recommendation on molluscan welfare, and the general trait in that recommendation was the lack of knowledge you have on molluscans, on shellfishes. And for a lot of things, I think we just lack the knowledge for really see what the effects on the mussel are of several treatments. And hopefully you also as organization can help us with stimulating that this scientific research will be started on how mussels, for example, experience things, what they can experience, if they can experience pain, stress. Questions enough, but that's an important lack of knowledge, which also is in the document. Another general remark I want to make is about predator control. I saw it with trout. It's mentioned that predator control should only be used for predator control. Only non-lethal methods should be used, and I should want that to be mentioned also in the general part. Then concerning the part on indeed the predator prevention, predator control, there indeed it's also missing that only non-lethal methods should be used. And what are the effects of removal of starfish for these starfishes, which are also animals and worse to protect. And dus can methods be used that they still survive, or is it just do you support the killing of these starfishes? How to remove, and what you've mentioned there, these predators is indeed very important to give more information about. Yes, in other paragraphs there is a special paragraph on environmental enrichment. And of course we lack knowledge about how mussels experience their environment, but it still can be useful to have such a paragraph just to start thinking about what mussels prefer as an environment and where they have to live in. And you mentioned the cleaning of mussels, and this cleaning will happen with alive animals. And is this cleaning also in a way that doesn't harm the mussel? You cannot use all cleaning cleaning stuff for doing this. I think that should also be mentioned. Okay, I think that is and then the harvesting. I think it should be at least seen as a problem, which is we don't know if a mussel suffers from harvesting, but it should be at least seen as a possible problem where we have to collect knowledge on. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Paul, for this, how should I phrase it, small basket of questions/comments on all mussels. Very, very welcomed. I think it was quite extensive, Pablo, so before we take any further questions, I will give the floor to you if you have anything to comment on Paul's intervention.
Well, I think that we should go back to one of the comments, which is quite relevant, that Paul mentioned, which is the one related to stress. And this is specifically related to the context of the sea acidification. We clearly have a lack of knowledge on the issue, but of course, the mussel is clearly affected by this, and that is why we are already trying to understand how it works. As a result of this situation, the production rates are decreasing, and this is something, therefore, which is very relevant and that we need to further research. It's going to have an impact on the welfare and well-being of the mussels, that's for sure.
Thank you, Pablo. Are there any other questions, comments? Yes, Ola, please.
Thank you again, Paul. Thank you again for this shellfish thing. I was thinking about the hatchery. You were talking about water quality in the hatchery, very important to not have pathogens there, and need of settling basins, filters, and UV lamps and things like that. And I remember we had this discussion in aquaculture of finfish when it comes to talking about best available technology, and that this is I mean, this should be something up to the farmer to choose a method that could be making the hatchery free of pathogens, and not to suggest that you have these lamps and things that, because if you have these lamps, maybe you are not free from pathogens because these lamps doesn't work or something. It's better to put that you shouldn't have these pathogens, and then you need to show a method or protocol how to not have these pathogens. Like if you use water from very deep sea or any other way that you produce this pathogen-free water that are not mentioned, should also be possible for the farmer to use. Because if you can find an economical way of running the hatchery with less technical equipment, it's always better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ola, for this. And now back to Paul. Please, Paul.
Yes, I also like to have an answer on my remarks on predators and predator control.
Thank you for the reminder, Paul. I will give the floor to you, Pablo, for those two questions.
Well, the first thing we've tried to do has to try to put together different examples on how the different producers are handling predators. And that is why we included that in the document. We've tried to adopt a holistic approach, but we always have to bear in mind that predators are also part of a wider ecosystem with a lot of living creatures that we also need to protect, of course.
Do you have any comments to the issue raised by Ola? You need to unmute, Pablo.
I take note of what Ola says, that we need to find affordable and easily manageable systems for the future. And I also think that they need to be adapted to the production method which is used. I totally agree that they have to be tailor made and affordable. That is crucial. And that is precisely what we had in mind with this document. We tried to put together all the different examples and realities from the different producers. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. Any additional questions? It does not appear to be the case, so we will be closing this. Yes, Amir, please, you have the floor.
I have a short general question. Is there any chapter regarding killing animals? Any of them, fish, mussels, etc.
You're asking about how to kill the fish, if I understood you
Yeah, if
correctly?
there's any, if
Yes.
there's any chapter concerning that part or of killing the fish, harvesting and killing.
Yeah, thank you. Pablo?
Well, that is a very good question indeed. So far, we have not included killing or transport of fish and mussels, but that is covered, however, inside the document on welfare, which we are about to publish. So that new document will cover both things specifically, but it's not included in the one we're dealing with today. DG Mare decided to do so, and that's why we haven't done that. And thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying this very important issue. Additional questions? Yes.
A short
Paul?
question: when you expect that document on welfare, when will you publish it?
Do you have a timeline, Pablo?
Thank you. And thank you so much to the interpreters because help.
I keep swapping from one language to the other. So I believe by the end of October, it should be ready.
Thank you. Yeah. Other questions, comments? No? Then we will close this webinar slightly before our schedule. But I thank all of you for attending this webinar, for your active involvement, and also for contributing to a smooth and orderly holding. I also wish to thank Birgit and Pablo, Elena for their interventions, and also the interpreters for their services. I trust and hope that this webinar will encourage further dialogue, both among and between farmers, authorities, NGOs, and researchers on how to implement the good husbandry practices and thereby contribute to the development of the EU aquaculture sector. We all know that EU aquaculture is diverse, and of course the good practices should be adapted and focused to meet your specific situation. As mentioned on several occasions, it is a live document, and your comments and proposals are welcomed for further updates. And on this, I also hope that this webinar motivates you to contribute to and also to implement the good practices. I invite you to visit the AAC website, where you can find all of our recommendations. They are published and translated into different EU languages. And as mentioned also in my introduction, this webinar will be published soon on the AAC website along with interpretation. I also invite you to follow the AAC on social media, including LinkedIn, to note our announcement on future webinars and events. And finally, I remind you that any unanswered questions or subsequent questions can be mailed to the Secretariat until 15th October at the email address you have in front of you. And on this, my final comment will be that I hope I will be able to welcome you again at our next webinar. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.